Well, it's not just the U.S. that's a problem. Canada is also in a trade dispute with the world's second biggest economy, China. And as China's agricultural tariffs bite, both the Premier of Saskatchewan and the Prime Minister's own parliamentary secretary are headed to Asia on a trade mission this weekend. Well, last month, you can see there, China imposed a 75.8% tariff on Canadian canola seed. It also still has a 100% tariff on Canadian canola oil and meal. Now, China imposed these and other tariffs after Canada put a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles last year. So as the agricultural industry suffers under both U.S. and Chinese duties, today the industry minister signaled more help is coming.
We're really working on supporting these sectors, and there's more news to come on that. But we're also looking on the other side of the ocean to make sure that we're creating closer ties with Europeans and also with Asian countries, because Canada is a trading nation.
Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe is headed on a trade mission to China, and he joins me now before his trip. Premier Moe, it's good to see you again. Thank you for being here, sir.
Good to see you, David.
So when you get to speak to Chinese officials and make your case directly for the agricultural tariffs to be lifted, what's the argument? How do you convince them?
Well, it's the start of a greater trade opportunity with Canada. As I've said all along, as we look to diversify additional exports, and this is where we have been for the last number of years in Saskatchewan, is diversifying our additional exports to countries outside of North America. The opportunity for Canada and China is actually to increase our trade relationship as we look to, further diversify Canada's exports, not just Saskatchewan's. That's the opportunity for China, and it's the opportunity for Canada, and that's the message that I'll be bringing, and it starts with, opening up free and fair trade access for the products that we currently produce.
Right, but so much of this is tied up in the 100% tariff that Canada put on Chinese-made electric vehicles, right? This is trying to have alignment with the U.S. We've got this dispute going with China. So how do you make the argument if those tariffs are still there and the federal government doesn't seem to be moving on that one?
There's indirect and direct consequences to all the relationships, the international relationships that are out there. And herein lies the line that we need to walk as Canadians and as subnational governments, like the one that I lead here in Saskatchewan, in engaging with our national government and then supporting them in the efforts that they're making abroad. And so, the goal of this mission for myself, and thankful Parliamentary Secretary Kody Blois will be joining us, is to bring that Canada-China relationship and that Canada-China conversation about, what does the future look like for EV vehicles and our relationship there? What does the future look like for our agricultural trade across the borders, and our exports to China look like into the future? We want that conversation to happen sooner rather than later, so that we can get to some degree of certainty with what is our second largest, canola export market. The largest being the United States of America, and you've struck, on the very delicate balance that we're facing as not just an agriculture industry in the prairie provinces in Saskatchewan, but as Canadians with our trade relationships with so many countries around the world.
Yeah, canola is really getting squeezed with that dynamic. But you mentioned that Kody Blois, the Prime Minister's parliamentary secretary, for a brief period of time was the agriculture minister, but that was only lasted a few weeks, I think. But what do you hope comes of that, having a federal presence with you on the trip? It's not the Prime Minister, but it is the parliamentary secretary.
I think the benefit is, certainly there. First, Kody Blois reports definitely to the Prime Minister. Second, he's well regarded as an agriculture minister by many of the producers and farm groups that I've spoken to here in Saskatchewan and across the prairies. And lastly, and I think most importantly, to have a federal official along on this, initial engagement mission in China is going to help bring that broader trade conversation forward sooner rather than later. And as I said, that's my goal on behalf of not only the canola industry, but the pulse tariffs we're facing, pork tariffs, and as Canadian, I think in fairness to seafood tariffs as well. So having Kody Blois along, I think, is going to accelerate and advance the broader trade conversation between Canada and China. So that's a positive, and I'm gracious for it.
The EV tariffs, just to circle back to that if I can, Premier, I mean, do they need to go for this to get resolved? It feels like that's what China will probably want to see. I mean, is there any sense from the feds that they would be willing to contemplate this? Because you're risk-provoking the United States if you do that, right?
Yeah, therein lies the risk. And, so the easy answer is, yes, certainly they need to go. But then the risk of that is that we actually have challenges with our largest destination, which is the United States of America. And so I know Minister LeBlanc is, working hard and diligent in Washington, D.C. with his counterpart, Secretary Lutnick, and likely Secretary Greer as well. We need both markets. We need to continue to have access to the U.S. market for, the entirety of Canadian exports as we move forward in order to have that strong North American economy. But we, in Saskatchewan, we export to actually over 160 countries around the world. Our second largest canola market is China. And at the end of the day, we need them both. And so that's the, the great dance that we have to perform as Canadians, and we're doing our level best as a subnational leader to support our Canadian government in ensuring that we can get to the very best place that we can in multiple nations all at the same time.
I know you're not overselling the potential outcome of this meeting, like you're not going to be standing there with President Xi and signing a trade agreement, I don't suspect. And this is in no way to diminish the importance of the role of the Premier of Saskatchewan, but does the Prime Minister of Canada, does Mark Carney need to go to China for these issues to be resolved, do you think?
Yes, at the appropriate time. And I've spoken with the Prime Minister as well as others elected and unelected in the federal government. And there will be a time for us to have our Prime Minister Carney, and President Xi hopefully coming to an agreement, not just in the canola or the agri-food space, but coming to an agreement on what the future trade relationship looks like between Canada and China. And again, I just say if we're going to truly diversify additional production to other countries around the world, that means Europe, that means India, that means China, that means many other countries around the world. And so, I've seen Prime Minister Carney greatly elevate his engagement. And I would say the Canadian reputation internationally, it includes with companies like China. But my goodness, there's a lot going on if you look at just what's happened in the past week internationally. And so it is going to take some hard work, some heavy lifting, and some engagement. There'll be a time for that. And I'll be seeing Prime Minister Carney on my return to discuss just those opportunities. So
just as a final point, I know you spent a lot of time talking with the Prime Minister and your colleagues at the First Minister's table about major projects and national projects. Parliament's due back in about 10 days, sometime between now and then. We're probably going to get that first tranche of national projects coming out of this Build Canada initiative. What's your expectations there? I mean, you've got a bit of a smile on your face. You're expecting good news for Saskatchewan, you're expecting good news for the West. So what are your thoughts there?
Well, I hope there's good news for Canada, where many of our projects are actually not only good for Saskatchewan, but are good for the entirety of our nation, or a good part of our nation. Same is true for projects that are approved in other provinces. And it is time for us to get back to truly being Canadian, and that needs to be led by the federal government. We're going to have a number of projects on that list. In fact, every project that has any federal touch is a priority for our province, whether it's $1 million or $1 billion, to find its way through C5, which is that piece of legislation that's finding a path through a very difficult regulatory environment that has been formed over the course of the past decade. So it's our hope that any and all projects are able to find their way through C5 to be truly beneficial for all people, Indigenous, non-Indigenous, and all people from coast to coast to coast in Canada. This is one of the things we can determine is what we are actually going to and how we are going to increase our production and where that product is going to go. Existing supply chains are difficult to change and alter. But new production, we can determine our own destiny when it comes to new production. So I'm pretty bullish on the future of our province and the future of Canada, but there's some action that needs to happen. There's been some great words by a new Prime Minister and a renewed Liberal government, but it's time for the rubber to hit the road, so to speak.
Okay, and one last thing. There is a suggestion, there's going to be an announcement from the Prime Minister tomorrow. Maybe sectoral support is kind of what the buzz is coming out of the Cabinet retreat. Canola is one area that has not had sectoral support yet. Steel's seen some support, auto and others. You expecting something there? What do you need to see there?
Yeah, what we truly want is market access. In the absence of not being able to have that market access to the United States, China, and other markets around the world, we are going to need some sectoral support, not only for the producers, but for the exporting entities that are there, that are working in some very challenging times right now with literally shiploads of canola that are hunting for places to unload in what is a very uncertain exporting environment there right now. That's not our goal. That's not what we want. We want market access. Producers want market access. Exporters want market access. But in light of us not having that in the very, very near future, we're going to have some challenges in the ag industry and the exporting industry.
Premier Scott Moe, have a safe trip to China. Thanks for joining us on a busy day.
Thank you so much, David.